When I opened Blender for the first time, it was so daunting. There were many tabs, bars, and a cube in the middle. What's up with that? So, if you feel the same way, I totally understand you. Don't worry, I'm here to help. I'll show you the basics which you would use most of the time in Blender. Here is the Properties panel. Right here is the outliner where you would find your objects. Something like layers. Hit N so this sidebar pops up. There are many tabs there, we'll use them if we have to. Now, this area is the 3D viewport. Now click the middle mouse button and move the mouse around. You can rotate the view like that. You can do the same with the touchpad of a laptop. You can use the two fingers in the way that you usually scroll. If you hold down the shift key while you are doing that, you can move the view. That is the same for the touchpad as well as the mouse. To zoom in and out, you can use the scroll wheel. Or you can just zoom in and out like you would do when you are using the touchpad. Enough with moving around, let's do something with this cube. Right now, this cube is selected. You can see an orange outline around this cube, right? That means it is selected. Press G to grab your cube. Move the mouse around to move your cube. If you click anywhere while you are moving, your cube will change its location depending on where you click. If you press Ctrl Z, like many other softwares, you can undo your previous steps. You can go back up to your last 32 steps. You can move the cube in specific axis as well. Press G and press X, Y or Z to move in that particular axis. Hit Ctrl Z a bunch of times to go back. Next thing we can do is rotating the cube. You can rotate the cube based on the camera view by pressing R and moving your cursor. Or you can press a particular axis after R and then move your cursor. If you click anywhere, then the cube would be rotated by that much. Next up is scaling the cube. If you press S and move the cursor away from the cube, you can scale up the cube. Similar to the rotation and moving, here also you can scale the cube in specific axes. Up until now we were in the object mode, but we can transform this cube on a different level. To do that, we have to go to the edit mode. Press tab to go to the edit mode. The look of the cube has changed a bit, isn't it? Now you can select these vertices that makes this cube one by one. And you can move them like this. Right now we are in the vertex select mode, where you can select only vertices. But if you press 2, you can go to the edge select mode, where you can select edges, like this. You can select the faces too. To go to the face select mode, press 3. Here also you can move, rotate and scale the selected faces. Now hit tab to go back to the object mode. Now to make this a bit interesting, let's make a bench. We'll learn some more functions there. I'm making a base for the bench. For that, I'll scale the cube on all 3 dimensions, 1 dimension at a time. Hit S and then Y to scale this cube on Y axis. Hold down the Ctrl key to scale in steps. Press the Shift key at the same time to make these steps even smaller. Let me quickly scale down the other dimensions as well. Now the cube seems a bit distant. We can just focus on the cube only if we press number pad period key. We can change the dimensions of the cube right here if we want. Now let's go to the edit mode. We'll extrude this face. Hit E. This would duplicate the face and gives us the option to move it along the axis normal to the face. You can cancel this movement if you hit escape key, but only the movement is cancelled. The face is still here. You can manually move it by pressing G if you like, but I'll start over. Hit E and then type in 0.15 and press enter. It would move your new face 0.15 meters away from the original face. We need 2 more edges in the middle. We can add loop cuts by pressing Ctrl plus R. Scroll up to make 2 or more loop cuts. Here I only need 2 like this. Now click. You can move these loop cuts like this, but we want them right in the middle. However, we need these 2 loop cuts towards the sides so we can scale them along the x-axis like so. Click when your loop cuts are positioned closer to the sides like this. Now press 3 to go to the face select mode. Select these 5 faces and press E to extrude. 0.1 meter extrusion is enough here. Now go back to the object mode. We need to add few planks. To add a new object, hit Shift A. Select cube. This cube is huge. We can change the dimensions right here. I'll input 0.14 meters. Now that's better. Move it along the Z-axis so we can see it. Hit number pad period key to zoom in on this cube only. I need to change the X and Y dimensions. So I'll use this transform panel. Reduce the X dimension down to 0.075 meters. Increase the Y dimension up to 3 meters. We want this plank to be in this groove or cut section. But it seems impossible to do this like this, right? Therefore, we can go to a different view. Hit number pad 7 to go to the plan view. Here you are looking down from the top. Now you can move the plank as you like. However, the size of this plank is a bit much. Let's reduce the length down to 2 meters. Let's move the plank here, but still we can be sure that it's in the right position. So the answer is the wireframe mode. Press Shift Z to go to the wireframe mode. Now we can zoom in and place the plank appropriately. I feel like this plank is too wide. So let's reduce the width. Make it 0.05 meters. Still the plank doesn't seem to be placed perfectly. So go to the front view by pressing number pad 1. Now move the plank like so. The next step is rounding these edges. Because in the real life you don't see any sharp edges. Every sharp edge is rounded if you zoom in enough. To do that, we need to add bevels to these objects. But we need to apply the scales of these objects first. Select an object and press Ctrl A. Select scale. Do the same for the base as well. Now let's go to the edit mode with this base selected. Choose all of these edges, but don't select the lines in the middle. You can go to the X-ray mode by pressing Alt Z. There you can check whether all of these edges are selected or not. Now press Ctrl B to add the bevel. We can change the width of the bevel here. Increase the number of segments too. Do the same for this plank also. Now we can duplicate this plank. Press Shift D, then press X to move it along the X-axis. We can keep a space between these planks by adjusting the movement value here like this. Now hit Shift R a bunch of times. That would repeat the last step. Now select this base. Press Shift D to duplicate, then Y to move it along the Y-axis. Place it somewhere here. Now rotate it 180 degrees around the Z-axis. Move it a bit away from the planks like this. Alright, basic modeling is done. Right now these objects are not connected. If you move one object, the others won't follow. But it is better if we had that kind of a relationship, right? Select these planks, then the other objects for the base. Select this object at last. Now hit Ctrl plus P. Select Object Keep Transform. So the last cube selected becomes the parent. Obviously the rest of the objects should be the children, and the rest of the objects should follow the parent. If you move the parent like this, we'll move the bench up so it rests on Z equals 0 level or the ground level. Now we'll add a plane that would act as our ground. Hit Shift A, select plane. Change its size like this and move it away like so. To move this plane only on X and Y axes, press Shift Z after pressing G. Now, to render this, we can choose either Cycles or Eevee render engines. But Cycles is the photorealistic render engine, so I'll choose that. We'll tick a few boxes and change a couple of values. These are to change the quality of the image that you would get in the viewport and in the render. Higher the sample count, higher the clarity of the image. You'll learn more about this when you are practicing. Up until now, we were just looking at the scene in an arbitrary view. To view this through camera, press number pad 0. Now this is the camera view. Click on this boundary to select the camera. Pressing G will move the camera around like this. We want to get closer to the scene. So after pressing G, press Z twice. Now you can get closer to wherever your camera is pointed at. Let's move the camera along the X and Y axis appropriately like so to get a closer look. Now scale the plane to cover the whole camera view. We can press this circle to go to the rendered view. It's nice, right? We have a shadow too. So where's the light? Let's find that out. Here it is. Now we can move this light around. According to the location of the light, the shadow casted on the ground changes. I like this position. Now we need some materials for the bench. To add materials, go to Material Properties in the Properties tab. Change the base color like so. I want this to be concrete, so let's increase the darkness. That's all right. Now these planks. Here click on this new button to give a new material. The planks should be wood, so I'll give them a brown color. Perfect. We can select all of the other planks by clicking on them holding the Shift key and select the brown plank at last. Press Ctrl L, select Link Materials. Now we have linked our wood material to all the other planks. Don't worry about the rest of the controls in the material properties. You can change these and see what each of these does later. But we can change the properties of this light. In the properties window, we can change its strength. Let's try 5000 watts. You see, we can perform little mathematical operations on these values. Let's change the radius of the light. Smaller the radii, sharper the shadows. Let's give a material for this ground also. Maybe a little green color. Now press Ctrl S to save your work. Give a proper name and press Save Blend File. It's that easy. Now we can go back to the solid view. Now go to the Render tab on the top bar. Press Render Image. After the render is finished, hit Image, Save, give a proper name and save a PNG image just like that. So want to get to the next level in Blender? Click right here.